Well, good morning and welcome, Tina, and thank you for joining us for this recording of Collective Voices around suicide attempt survivors. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you joining us today. I'm going to start off by the first question is if you could just tell us a little bit about your lived experience of suicide.
Yeah, absolutely. So my very first experience with suicide was an attempt I made when I was 16. Um, it was something that I recovered from and kept a secret from everybody else. I didn't tell anybody. And then sort of life goes on and got married, had kids, and um, 2020 was a terrible year. I had a lot of stress going on. My youngest child was coming close to his fifth birthday, and I got PTSD really badly, and I had several attempts that year. So I ended up in hospital a few times, um, and thrown from just, I don't know, my normal average life into the world of mental health services and things like that, which was, yeah, it was hard. It was a hard year.
It sounds like it. And in terms of when you were 16 versus 2020, just want to see like what was life like for you in terms of trying to get help, like while you were experiencing thoughts of suicide?
Um, Back then, it was very secretive. I didn't think I could tell anybody about my mental health because, well, this is back in, this would have been early 90s. Just people didn't talk about it. So I don't think I would have even known the avenues to go to then to talk about mental health or even that it was allowed. It's something that I never knew I had that option to talk about it.
There definitely has been a massive shift in the recent years around speaking about like the experience and thoughts of suicide and even the discussions around mental health, and particularly exacerbated by the the COVID stuff that happened in 2020. Like it sort of allowed us to talk about it. So if we were to come to 2020, what was life like for you? Were you trying to get support from people around you, or what was life like?
I was. I'd already been linked in with a psychologist and the mental health team through the hospital. Um, so I had people that I could talk to, but it was still really hard to talk about. Um, and, you know, in some instances, I did say that I was feeling very unsafe, but I don't know if they actually believed that level of how unsafe I was feeling. It was really hard to convey exactly how unwell I was. I think a lot of the
What?
time I would go into an appointment and they would look at me, which I look much the same as I did any other day, and they would tell me how well I looked today, which on the inside I was screaming at them saying, I am not well. Don't judge the outside. And it was really hard to convey. Yeah.
Mhm. And you're sort of saying like your message is that you're saying that you were feeling unsafe. What do you actually like? What did you need from others in those moments?
I really I think I just wanted somebody to tell me exactly what steps I could take, where I could go, what I could do to feel better. And nobody really took that role. I just because I was so unwell, I needed somebody else to direct that path for me. I didn't know how to do it on my own. But then I was passed through a lot of different services, so there was no one person that said, "Okay, this is what we need to do. Maybe stay here. We'll try this therapy." It was not like that, so it was really unclear as to how wellness is going to occur for me.
Mm. So it sounds like it just added more complexity to what was already a really tough time in your life, like having those thoughts of suicide and having life around you where people perceived you to be well and yeah, probably shrugging off your cries for help. Since that moment, I'm just wondering, and even probably since you were 16, how has your lived experience like of suicide, how has that shaped like your outlook on life?
After 16, I could not ever connect. I never really connected with life. Like I used to have a big group of friends, but I never really felt like I was the same as them. I always felt different. There was always, like, I would sit back and I would listen to the girls, and they would chatter and talk about things, and I always felt like I could never join in the conversation, so I'd just sit and be quiet and listen. Um, and it affected future planning as well. Like college and things back then, it never happened. I dropped out of school, even though I was doing quite well in year 11. After that suicide attempt, I just couldn't see the path forward, so I dropped out of school, so I didn't finish that. um, Even working and things, I had no direction because I had no future plans. I just could not see future, and it's even still now, it's a little bit like that. So I've sort of been floating through life, but there's been no future vision.
What's that like for you to live without that future vision?
It's hard, but it's become normal. So people will say, "Oh, imagine when you're older with your partner and your grandkids are running around," and it's like, no, I don't see that. I don't actually. I can't foresee me even being old. I never thought I would get there, so it's just something that I can't see.
Mhm. Has that shifted, or like you sort of say that started when you were 16, but has there been periods in life where you have seen a future, like you've seen yourself with grandkids down the line?
No, it's more. My life was based on getting past. So would make plans for a holiday in a year in advance. So my life is waiting for that to happen, or waiting for a milestone, waiting for the next Christmas, waiting for something tangible that I can make it to until the next one. There's no real, okay, well, when I'm 65, I'm going to be here doing this, sitting under a palm tree reading a book. It's not like that ever. It's just getting through different milestones. Okay, well, my little one's going to be 10 next year. That's double digits. My oldest one might finish uni. It's just things that I mark off to mark life. Otherwise, I just float on through. It's really hard to describe, but I think, especially at 16, something happens when you consciously decide to end your life. And I don't know if it's something that you can get back. So it's that connection that broke way back then. Um, and I haven't been able to fix it. I don't even know how to fix it. But it definitely, something back then changed the course of the future. And I'm just floating through it now.
Mm. That's a really big perspective to have, like to sort of see that moment back when you were 16 and you survived attempt of suicide as like the big disconnect that sort of shifted in your life. What's been the greatest challenge that you faced since overcoming that attempt versus like overcoming the attempts in 2020?
I think the hardest thing is to put on your mask of being normal, because back when I was 16, like I was saying, it was almost impossible to have a conversation about suicide back then. So you have to mask that. You have to pretend like everything's going okay. Um, And even then, I think that was a learned response as well. So back in 2020, I was really trying hard to keep it from friends and family and um, work. I was just trying to hold it all together and not burden people with my problems. Um, I know now that that's not the right way to go, and that's why I'm really happy to talk about it, because I think with talking comes healing, and still I feel bad sometimes because not everyone is happy to have a conversation about suicide still. So you really have to try and pick and choose who you think might be able to handle that conversation.
Mm. Absolutely. I just want to take a step back. You mentioned around being normal. What's your concept of being normal? And is being normal something that you actually aspire to live?
Um, Look, I used to think when I was younger that the purpose of life was just to be happy, but I now know that it's not to be happy, it's just to be content with what you have. There's no such thing as 100% happy life every day, every minute. Um, you need to concentrate on the things that do make you happy and do more of them. Um, and I think my vision of normal back then was to get married, have children, and follow in the path of my parents, I guess. That was the only thing that I sort of had to base life on. But, um, and that's the sort of the path that I took, hoping that happiness would follow. But then mental health caught up at the end.
It's it's a it's a unique thing that happens with people who have a lived experience of suicide. And I've been blessed over the years to share conversations with thousands of people with lived experience. And I quite often hear that term about, I just want to go back to being normal, or I want to be normal. And it's almost like this evolution that people have a lived experience. And similar to you, like a lot of people will hide from it because it's the stigma that sits around it. So we'll keep it secretive. And then you reach a point in life where you get an ability to share your lived experience, and you take that step of vulnerability,
Yeah.
and life changes after that moment because you sort of you take that mask off and you're able to be who you are. So just wondering, like, with you taking the step to be vulnerable now and share your lived experience and be vulnerable, if you could take off the mask that you've been wearing and put on another one, or take the mask off altogether, what would you like to do?
I think my 2020 experience within the mental health system and my hospital admissions and things, it was a real eye opener. Like, that was the driving force of me talking about my suicide attempts and my mental health problems, because some of my experiences I didn't wish on anybody else. And I thought, okay, if I can do anything, I'm still here living. I need to make a difference. If it's just for one person, it will be a purpose. And so that's why I've been, and right through the 2020 period, and when I came out the other side, 2021, I've been happy to talk about my experience. I want to talk about my experience because, as I was saying before, I feel the more you talk about something, its power over you that makes you feel bad goes. Like, it's like you can talk about it and talk about it, and then all of a sudden the uncomfortableness around that conversation, it eases off, and it gets better. um, and so if I can help that with other people achieve that as well, I would like to.
Mhm. I asked this before about how has your lived experience shaped your outlook on life.
Yeah.
But another thing that you often hear with people who have lived experience of suicide is it also has an impact on relationships and the people that we draw to. And I find that people who have lived experience of suicide have the greatest bullcrap mask ever. Like, they can tell people who are not being genuine.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you could talk about how has your lived experience, how has that changed and shaped your relationships in life?
Um, it has shaped them. It's made me very wary of becoming close to people, um, because when I was still having suicidal thoughts, I thought I don't want them to be close to me because should I take my own life, I don't want them there to have that around. So I would push people away a lot, especially in my sort of my younger 20s. I lost a lot of good relationships I had with friends because I was just feeling they would be better off not to be around. Um, my partner that I'm still with, I've been with for over 25 years. Look, he has seen a real roller coaster of a ride, and I'm surprised he's still hanging around that long. It's been really, really hard. Um, but again, I push him away. I don't tell him a lot of what's going on in my head, and it was always a topic of contention for us because he would always ask me, you know, talk to me, tell me how your day was, how are you feeling, and I would not know how to express my feelings at all. And so it's been a long, long road. And then so in 2020, when I was really unwell, it sort of hit him. He's like, I can't believe I didn't know all these things that you're telling me now. It was a surprise for him too. So in a way, it's kind of like I was a bit deceitful not being honest, but it was just what I had to do just to get through.
Mm. And often words can be very hard to articulate what you're feeling when you've got a combination of numbness and sensations that you've never experienced before. It can be really hard to verbalize that. Have there been relationships in your world that have changed or like that you've have ended or really been altered based on your lived experience?
Um, no, look, the people, all the friends that I had throughout school, they never knew of that attempt. They knew that I had childhood trauma, and they knew that perhaps I did some unwise choices to try and not to try and cope with that childhood trauma at the time. But no, they never knew about that attempt. So I don't think it changed the relationships that way, although they probably just wondered why I pushed them away. Towards after school finished, I sort of just went my way, and it was easy just to lose contact with them. Um, since my attempt in 2020, I did tell a close friend, and that relationship just started to disintegrate a little bit after that, which I don't blame her. It's hard to hear, especially when it's not something that you really, I guess, were expecting. So, yeah, but apart from that, not everybody knows. Still, people don't know.
If people who don't know about your lived experience, if they watch this video and find out about about this part of your life, what's a message you'd like them to know about you and about who you are?
Oh, that's hard. Um, I think I think I would like them to know that the choices I made at the time was just me trying to do the best I could to hold everything together. Um, I'm still me. um, and I look, it is something when I think about it, it still brings feelings of shame and um, guilt, I think. Um, but yeah, look, I've pulled through, and I would like people to know. Firstly, if they saw this without knowing anything beforehand, I think it would be helpful for them to try and understand a little bit more. But yeah, no, I've pulled through. I'm still me.
Great, great. What does suicide prevention mean to you now?
I think it's really important. It's vital actually that something's done. And I really, it's such a complex problem though. There's no one easy solution. And if I look at my path, and also friends I've met along the way that have been in this space, it all seems to start with childhood trauma or traumas. Like, and I think it's sometimes within the suicide prevention space. Well, years ago, I don't know if trauma was that of important a factor, but I think for me and for the people that I know personally that have had that same childhood sort of experiences, that's the main thing with suicide. So, but that's such a hard thing to start, to stop at the start, to help with suicide prevention. But I really hope it goes down a holistic path. It can start from the beginning and work its way up.
And what role do you see like lived experience playing in suicide prevention?
I think it's really, really important because nobody can understand you as much as somebody who's been there before and done it too. So I guess you could get the best ever therapists, but you could connect the most with the ones that you know that have been in the same shoes. So I think lived experience within the suicide prevention space is absolutely important. Even for the connection that you'll have without actually having to say it. If you just know that that connection's there, you don't even need to speak about it, to share it. You just know that there's something with this person sitting next to you that's like you, and it's comforting.
If you were to be around someone who was having thoughts of suicide or had survived an attempt and they reached out for you for some hope or a message, what would you say to them?
I would just say, I'm here. I'm here to sit with you. I'm here to listen. I'm here to help in any way that I can. I think I think just to have somebody by your side, they don't even have to talk. I think that's really powerful and it helps. It really does help. Because when you're thinking of suicide, it's because you've disconnected. Well, for me, I'm speaking on my own behalf. I mean, I was surrounded by people, but I felt disconnected. I felt alone, even though I was not. And I think just to have somebody there beside you, not asking anything of you, but just being there, I that that really helps. And I think so if I can offer that, I would offer that.
You've highlighted some really powerful points about lived experience and that power of connection through a shared a shared life experience that may be completely different, but you have that understanding that someone's walked that path as well, and a message around providing connection for people and just a space to sit and just be with someone is super powerful.
Yeah.
What's your hope for the future? And I know you said before, like you sort of don't have that future vision, but your own self, like through your study and life, is there
Yeah.
something that you'd like to be doing in a year from now, or 2 months from now, or as far as you can look forward?
Yeah. So I have planned it out just a few years forward. So next year I will have finished my uni degree. And then I hope to work within the mental health space. And I really would like to make some changes that I noticed needed changing when I was going through the system. So that's given me a bit of purpose for the next few years. Past that, I have no idea. We'll see how we go. But no, I'm really looking forward to be able to try and drive some change in areas that I feel need it.
Mhm. That's really powerful to take your lived experience and take some of the toughest times in your life and make a commitment to study and see things through and map out that plan to be a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of?
Uh, I'm proud of my starting uni. I mean, that's something that it wasn't an option for me back when I was in high school. Um, and I'm proud. It was my last suicide attempt was in end of October in 2020. And it was only until, I think in January, it's very start of January, I signed up to do uni. It was only like 12 weeks later from hospital, ICU, to starting uni. It was a massive task, but it gave me purpose of something to do and a drive to see it through to the end. So I knew by starting that uni, that was 4 years of my life that I'd committed to be here and finishing and doing. So, and it's been really hard. It's been really, really hard to try and find that focus and time management when when life was so chaotic. So I'm proud that I've stuck it through and that I'm entering my final year, and that I'm still here.
I like how you just washed over that 12 weeks between an attempt and and signing up for uni. What took place like to prompt that and get you in a space where you went, hang on, I'm going to go to uni? Like, how did that actually happen?
Yeah. um, I think because I was so unwell, I knew whatever I had been doing was not working. So I had to make some changes out of my comfort zone. Um, and that was the change that I made. I thought, yeah, it's not working the way I was doing it. I've been in hospital 6 times this year. So if I continue going down this path, I'm not going to be here much longer. I need to make radical changes. And yeah, that was it.
That is definitely a radical change
Yeah,
to
it
go from
really.
there. And but it also highlights again another power of lived experience to experience a system and experience what's happening there. And rather than get frustrated and stuck on that, you've gone, there's a way that I can change that. I can go and work in there and bring that and yeah, create that change that you'd like to see. That's really beautiful. And final question I have for you is before we wrap up today, is there anything that's any is there any question that no one's ever asked you that you'd like to be asked around your lived experience or around life in general?
Um, yeah, that's a hard one too. It's not so much that I would like them to ask me, it's more I would like them to have an understanding. Because a lot of people, when they knew, the ones that did know that I had a suicide attempt, the first thing they asked me was why. And the why is a really hard answer to give people. Um, so I would like them to have more of an understanding rather than a judgment, because it was not a why as in why what happened to you. It was a why how could you. Um, and so being that it was a negative question, there was no right way to answer that. So I didn't, because it was a how could you do that to your family? Why did you do that? And how could you do that? Um, and I think I would just like people to try and understand a little bit. I mean, it's not an easy thing, and it's not. Um, I don't know. It was a hard decision. It was a hard decision when I was 16. It was a hard decision in 2020. And so to understand the whole path of life that took me to get to that edge that I crossed, yeah, it's understanding. I want people to understand.
It's a beautiful thing to finish on, and that's sort of reflects people being curious about things, but coming at it with compassion, not with judgment,
Absolutely.
not with a place of power and balance. Tina, I really want to thank you for the conversation and thank you for sharing part of your life story and the courage that you've shown in your journey and throughout life. And I really just wish you all the best through the rest of your studies and the career that you've got ahead for you. And I see you're going to have a massive impact in the lives of people who you're going to work with. And
Yeah.
that lived experience perspective that you'll be able to bring is going to be a beautiful synergy with the the studies that you've done plus the work experience that you'll gain. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to help.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tynan.